Yo, what up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Pnoid News, man. Listen, before the kids get up and everybody start bothering me this morning, right, I want to cut this video and whatnot, right? I seen this from Geopop, put it up on his channel. You know what I'm saying? I love that channel. You guys should probably go sub to it. I'll leave the link in the description. This is the epidemic of anti-leadership, and I think he knocked this one out of the park. Sometimes I agree with Eric Weinstein. Sometimes I can't stand what he says, but I mean, neither here nor there. Let's get down to this and have this conversation. You know what I'm saying? Let's check this out.
All of the really great options in handling a pandemic have been foreclosed by our leadership. I think there is no concept of leadership at all. I don't think in the era in which we live, we have seen someone behave as a leader. If I were Anthony Fauci, for example, and I really cared about saving the maximum number of lives, he would say, for better or worse, I am associated with so many negatives that I believe that my presence here is, in fact, detrimental to our objectives. And I'm going to allow a younger person without the baggage to inhabit this role and let them come to their own findings. And we've located a 37-year-old up-and-coming lady out in Texas who I think is the right person for the job, something like that.
Yeah, that is a brilliant ideology, right? And let me be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? That goes back to honor and the ability to be responsible for your actions and held accountable, right? The issue is that with our government, we don't have anything in place to really have individuals be held accountable for what they do. That's an important understanding to have, right? And this is kind of part of this whole cathedral thing that we talk about, you know what I'm saying, the oligarchy type of shit, where when FDR left office in 1945, well, when he died anyway, you know what I'm saying, and he picked a successor, he picked, you know what I'm saying, Harry Truman, who was a complete and utter worthless piece of shit. But the truth of the matter was he had put things into place where the actual mechanisms of government as a whole legitimately weren't in the hands of the voters. And that's an important thing to understand in this whole conversation. So there's a reason why these people don't, you know what I mean, have any accountability and why they're not acting accountable. You know what I'm saying? But let's keep rocking. You know what I'm saying?
He'll never do it. Nancy Pelosi will not recuse herself and say that I was the one who's, encouraged people to go to Chinatown celebrations at the beginning of the pandemic, nor Eric Garcetti about running the LA Marathon. All of the people in place do not display the characteristics of a leader. Big Pharma, for example, has an amazing opportunity. In the U.S., there was something called, I think, the PrEP Act, which immunizes them from the liability of something going wrong. Now, I'm not an expert in law, and I'm not an expert in medicine, so I don't really want to get into this. But if Big Pharma would step out from the shadows and say, we only need protection from frivolous lawsuits. If these vaccines were to go wrong, we want to be on the hook, and we are so confident of the long-term safety, not just the short-term safety of the vaccines, that we are choosing voluntarily to forego the protection because lives are at stake.
Well, let's keep this all the way 100 about that, right? The truth of the matter is that their boards would never let them do that, right? They have a whole team of lawyers who legitimately would never allow them to do that. They go, oh, no, this is too much of a liability for us long-term, blah, blah, blah. I mean, even though they are confident in their product, you know what I'm saying? Truth of the matter is like, yo, short term, yeah, they should have been, you know what I'm saying, held away from lawsuits, so they should have been protected from lawsuits. But long term, no. Right? They shouldn't have been. You know what I mean? Because once they made all that profit and they were paid for all this stuff and everything was over, if people started getting cancer or sick from these, you know what I'm saying, RNA vaccines or whatever it was, the truth is that, yes, you should be held accountable for these type of things as far as stuff's really concerned, but like it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, this is what happens when, you know what I mean? Like, you don't run a company with one man in charge. You know what I mean? That's the truth of the matter, right? And this is why, like, nobody goes to jail when, you know, things happen at a company like HSBC, you know what I mean, legitimately, like, had banks where they were, you know what I mean, like, they were laundering money for drug cartels. And they actually built, like, teller windows that were the exact size of the boxes that they were bringing the money in for. And no one went to jail, even though, like, massive amounts of laws were broken. This is the problem, is that you immunize these individuals from even having any legal responsibility for what they do. And this is the end result. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have one man in charge. There's a reason why CEOs get paid so much, right? Because they're supposed to have the responsibility and the authority at the same time. Like, right now, they just have all the authority and none of the responsibility.
There's something about a war footing where we are 75 years out, let's say, from World War II. We haven't seen anyone with the presence of mind of a Neville Chamberlain to step down because the good of the country is at stake. And so there's no concept of how we would actually deal with a pandemic in the modern era. I know what I would do if I were a member of the establishment in terms of sitting in a seat at an institution. So we have peacetime careerists where we need wartime generals. And I know what to do as a wartime general. I don't know what to do with peacetime careerists in a war footing. Everything is downstream from that. You told people not to wear masks because they don't work, or in fact, they retain germs, so you can get sick from your masks, so don't wear masks, but make sure that the health professionals wear it. I mean, that's such an affront to the mind. And you're still sitting in your position. You're still lying to the public. I don't think we understand that the era of pre-internet public health is permanently over for the rest of our lives. You cannot come up with cute little rhyme scheme. My personal favorite is there's a tradition of storytelling in public health where you try to get celebrities to do things because they have the sort of the clout with the public. And to have Ariana Grande dancing to this number, no lockdowns anymore. We can have air kisses and bottomless mimosas. No. Science is science, and public health has to change for the modern era. No one expects Pelosi, Trump, Biden, McConnell, or Fauci to recuse themselves, to step down, to admit responsibility.
Don't be such a chicken squat. Get out there and get shot. Vaccine, 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 vaccine.
The most important thing is there were plenty of things that we could do with honorable people that we cannot do with current leadership.
Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, again, what you have to remember is that, like, legitimately the vast majority of the individuals who are in office have absolutely no power over what's going on. Like, legitimately, like, well, let's keep this all the way 100. You know, we've seen one, maybe two people in the past 30 years go to jail for lying to Congress. Legitimately, one, maybe two people, right? And like one of those was Roger Stone, and he wasn't even lying. It was just the fact that that's when they wanted, like, they selectively enforced the law. You know, so therefore, like, you know, if you don't really have any, if you don't choose to enact your power evenly and, you know what I'm saying, respect the law as it is, then nobody's going to respect the law and nobody's going to have any responsibility. And as far as like the idea that we should have a wartime politic, like, yeah, absolutely. But the issue is that, you know, I heard an argument between, there was a Canadian prime minister who made a video for, what's that fucking thing with the guy who sued YouTube? I forget. I don't really care. But there was a Canadian prime minister who said this is an argument between somewheres and anywheres, right? People who can live anywhere and do what they do, right, are the individuals who governments are catering to, right, versus the somewheres where it's somebody who has to like live somewhere because that's where their job is. You know what I mean? Like the vast majority of folks. So, you know, with all these anywheres who, you know, they can live in Singapore, they can live, you know what I'm saying, in Tokyo, they can live in Beijing, they can live in London, they can live in Berlin, they can live, you know what I'm saying, wherever, and still, you know what I mean, pay their bills. Whereas the rest of us are kind of stuck, you know what I mean, somewhere working a job. the idea of these congressmen, I mean, who, they're not like Nancy Pelosi's from San Francisco. She spends the majority of her time in Northern Virginia, right? And then traveling to wherever she's going to travel to for, whatever nonsense she's going to do. You can't have these people in office, who need, like, when the pandemic started happening, like, the borders should have been, like, welded closed. There should have been not one single person who came in after February of last year at all, period. Right. And, like, they should have had that conversation and went, hey, look, it might be 5 years before anybody's allowed to come into this country again. But you can't have that conversation with anywheres, because they're the individuals who are actually in government and running it. That's a problem. Let's keep rocking though.
If leadership was understood, we would have options. In the absence of leadership, which is where we are, you have people who belong in chairs that would allow them to be more measured, more careful, to command more resources, sitting in podcasting studios, waiting for octogenarians to leave the stage. Leadership is possible. It is not possible with this generation of people who are anti-leaders. We are talking about an epidemic of anti-leadership with the people sitting in chairs of leadership. Public health and war are probably the two best examples of a society needing to be something more than a collection of individuals pursuing their own freedom. I don't know what COVID is.
It was Dennis Prager. He did a thing for fucking Dennis Prager's channel. I just want to put that out there.
Part of me still thinks COVID is a really, really serious disease that has killed and killed and killed. Another part of me thinks COVID is an overblown panic that is being used by various people. And I believe both of those statements are true.
Well, that's an absolute fact, right? First off, number one, the media needed ratings, right? You know what I'm saying? They wanted to sell, like advertising space. So that's important to understand, because these are the people who ginned up this entire thing. Second one is that public health people, they're more than willing to hop on any show at any given time, because without a pandemic, nobody knows who Anthony Fauci is. Legitimately, right? It's the same kind of thing when you start talking about, without war, you don't know who MacArthur is, or, Petraeus, you know what I'm saying? Or Colin Powell. These are important things to understand as a whole. Like, you will never meet these officials. These government officials will never have this type of spotlight, never have this type of power, never have this type of reach, right? Never have this type of funding handed to them without, some type of crazy, catastrophic thing happening. Important ideology to understand. Let's keep rocking though.
I don't think Anthony Fauci is somebody who thinks that he owes the public the truth in general. I think he is somebody who believes that he was entitled to tell us not to wear masks, to cover up for the failure to replace personal protective equipment, when the government was not heeding the literature, which is quite explicit that in a changing correlative environment, you need surge capacity. Surge capacity means that the trickle of need for something like personal protective equipment is not useful as a basis for predicting pandemic need. So that wasn't replaced. And so Anthony Fauci believed that he was entitled to distort the truth, to try to get people not to buy masks because medical people needed them more. One of the reasons you guys maintain a queen is that the queen may need to, once or twice in a century, address the public and say something like,
I also want to thank those of you who are staying at home, thereby helping to protect the vulnerable and sparing many families the pain already felt by those who have lost loved ones. Together we are tackling this disease, and I want to reassure you that if we remain united and resolute, then we will overcome it.
And you look directly into the camera and you level with people.
Again, like, we've been covering a lot of Curtis Yarvin on this channel, and I'll be honest with you, his writing is swaying me towards the ideology of, like, monarchy, right? Because I think fucking democracy is goddamn stupid as a whole. And like, legitimately, this is the thing about a monarch, is a monarch only makes money and only has the ability to gain his wealth through the ability of his people to become better. That's an important understanding. When your people become worse off, your country becomes worse off. You end up becoming less stable. That's an important understanding, right? Their welfare is generated through people becoming better off in your society. That's, you know, I mean, an important thing to understand. And that's why people trust the Queen of England more than they trust, you know what I'm saying, any prime minister or any, you know what I'm saying, you know, they're barristers, they're parliamentary members, whatever, I don't know. They're not really, British people aren't really people, you know what I'm saying? They don't live in America as far as I'm concerned, right? You know, they don't live in my neck of the woods, so I don't consider them human beings. But, you know, so I'm not going to learn about their politics. But anyway, you know, it's important to understand, like, yo, those people, you know what I'm saying, they gain respect and they gained, you know what I'm saying, ability and wealth through, you know what I mean, the pillaging and, you know what I'm saying, the pilfering of the public purse. You know what I mean? That's important to understand.
Screwed up. We've got a problem. We need your help. Anthony Fauci's attitude is, well, I'm going to tell people that they don't need to wear masks because masks don't work. That's why Anthony Fauci is a peacetime careerist who needs to be he needs to be enjoying his retirement. He can't be in a position of leadership. Public health in general doesn't believe in truth. Public health believes that you have truthful conversations at an esoteric level, and then you decide on a different exoteric strategy because the public doesn't know transfer RNA from messenger RNA. They don't understand viral replication. They wouldn't know T4 bacteriophage from coronavirus. That kind of contempt for public intellect may be warranted. Who knows? I don't know. But I can tell you that the public health community does not believe that truth is their primary goal. Their primary goal is getting what they believe to be efficacious public outcomes through messaging, storytelling, simplification, and in fact, coercion in the form of like Cass Sunstein and nudge and trying to effectively modify people's behavior who they don't think are capable of having a conversation at the level of virology or epidemiology.
Well, you know, we also have to remember that this is like a lot of this is caused by poor fucking public structures before the pandemic, like as a whole, right? Like the idea that, you know, we offshored all of our fucking masks and antibiotics and, you know what I'm saying, medicines and, you know what I mean, fucking respirator technology. We all that manufacturing shit, we offshored that years ago. And that should have been a national security issue. But they didn't see it that way because profits. You know what I mean? Profits are far more important than, you know what I'm saying, like the security of the fucking public of the country. You know, again, the oligarchy, you know what I'm saying, runs things when it comes down to it. You know what I'm saying? This is a fucking oligarchy. It's not a goddamn democracy or a republic.
So I'm vaccinated. But I don't trust Johnson & Johnson, who I chose to be my vaccine provider. I trusted the older technology of not using mRNA, not because I think that mRNA technology won't work in the long run. I think it will replace the technology I chose, but it was new and fresh, and new, fresh things often have unforeseen consequences. So my feeling is that I chose an inferior technology because it was too new. I chose to get a vaccine from a company I don't trust.
Let me keep this 100 with you, right? This dude is a scientist, right? And flat out, he's saying he doesn't trust the RNA stuff. I'm not vaccinated. I'm not fitting on getting vaccinated, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I think this is something that is going to be like the flu vaccine, where they're going to try and make you get a new one every fucking year on some shit. And I'm just on this level of where it's like, I'm going to try and stay in best of shape as possible, as long as possible. Right. I'm going to go, you know what I'm saying? I go for walks every day. You know what I'm saying? I exercise, I lift weights. You know what I'm saying? I fucking work the heavy bag, you know, and I'm trying to get in the best shape that I possibly can so that my body has the ability to fight this off as long as possible. And when I get older, you know what I'm saying? 55, 60 years old, whatever, and my body is not able to do this and I become much more vulnerable, then I'll have a conversation with myself, you know what I'm saying, and my fucking girl or whatever about getting vaccinated. You know what I mean? Or if it gets to the point where I have to, you know, have a vaccine to work, I probably will. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it just is what it is. Because, you know, feeding my fucking family is more important than myself. Because, like, I risk my life every day to make money for my family, and I always have. You know, whether it was working in the steel mills or, you know what I'm saying, working in the train yards, or whether it was welding or cutting apart steel. You know what I mean? Like, I've always risked my life for my fucking family. I've always put my body and my fucking health and safety in great danger to feed my kids. And even today, I drive out in these fucking roads, you know what I'm saying, in the middle of winter, you know what I mean, go over top of these mountains in the middle of the winter, you know, to feed my family. So, like, you know, having risk to feed my family is a different situation than, you know, having a risk in order just to, you know what I mean, protect the goddamn neighborhood because I don't care about the rest of everybody else. You know what I'm saying?
I chose to follow the recommendations of people inside of the mainstream who I despise. I think the cognitive dissonance of saying, I don't trust you, I know you're lying, I know you're perversely incentivized, I know that this is running risks, I know that you're claiming that it's safer than the thing that I took. And I still think it was the right thing to do. It's not a Schelling point where people can collect. They tend to collect either at, for God's sakes, those people who don't listen are quacks. Listen to the recommendation people. The CDC and the Surgeon General are singing from the same hymnal. There's that Schelling point. And there's the Schelling point. Man, you can't trust these guys because they're in bed with each other and they're corrupt. These are the reflexive positions that you talk to about, or the reflexive contrarian position, the reflexive sort of establishment position. Waking up every day and trying to do your own sense making is exhausting, and it's not viable for the world. We need institutions to do this. People claim, you know, I was just talking to Sam Harris 2 nights ago. He said, well, you're anti-institutional. It's like, no, I'm anti the group of people who inhabits the institutions.
All right, children, welcome back to class.
This is too confusing for people. People need simpler stories, and we need a Schelling point where people can collect that makes sense. There is none available, and that's the key issue. The way I always took it is those were the lies. The real truth is we expect you to bear the risk. We recognize that we're perversely incentive. It's still, on balance, fairly safe. The cost of the illness, particularly in terms of morbidity, not just mortality. And we always focus on mortality, and we somehow don't focus on negative long-term side effects, has, on balance, been in favor of the vaccines. None of us know how to do this, and we're fumbling. The mainstream is angry because it's trying to say you're fumbling the wrong way. You're having your thoughts out loud on large channels when we have a public health campaign that you're interfering with. The feeling is you have a bad public health campaign that's misconfigured. You have anti-leaders in leadership positions. So people are going to think for themselves. You have a new technology, the internet, which is meeting it. You know, I had Hong Kong flu in the late 60s. There was no internet. And
now let me say this, right? In my Discord, there's lots of people who shill out stuff on a regular basis, that I fully disagree with. In particular, like guys like shouting at clouds or whatever. And there was another dude, I forget who he was, right? I'm still in this Discord, right? But he, you know what I mean, does stuff. And, you know what I mean, they put out these, you know what I mean, crazy ass fucking joints where it's like, you know, oh my God, you know, like Bill Gates is over here trying to suck the blood or whatever, you know, fucking whatever nonsense, whatever, right? And I allow them to put that out there until it gets to the point where, like, you know, like it's, you know, spamming, right? You know, like I had one guy who, like, legitimately, like, that's a second ago, so he spammed my shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, this motherfucker will put links in like every 5 minutes, you know, and I was like, all right, look. I don't mind, you know what I'm saying, arguing with you about certain points, right? But, like, I can't argue with you about all these goddamn points all the time, right? Because, you know, it's too much. But I'll let motherfuckers put, like, go ahead, put everything in there, you know what I'm saying? Like, bring the information to me. I'm fine with that, right? And if you're right, you're right. If you're wrong, you're wrong. But we can argue about these things. My issue is that there's a lot of stuff out here that has no basis in reality and facts, that individuals are just scared and they're talking reckless because they want clicks. And I fight against that, you know what I mean? Because, like, all right, I want to be factual. I want to have some, you know what I'm saying, actual evidence behind what I'm saying and what I'm doing. And that's highly important to me because I don't want to lie. to y'all or anybody for that matter. You know what I mean? When I speak, I want individuals to be able to trust me, you know, and I think that's important. So I'm going to tell you what I know to the best of my knowledge every time, you know what I mean? Unless like, you know, I'm trolling because like, you know, I love trolling. It's important. You know what I mean? Just every time you meet a Beatles fan, tell them that the Oasis is better. You know, it's like, you just troll, you know what I mean? Troll the world, homie.
And by the way, you know, Woodstock was held in the middle of the, you know, Hong Kong flu. We don't understand where we are. We have no concept of what we're doing. We're figuring it out in real time. And the biggest problem that we're having is there are two strategies. One strategy is let's get everybody singing from the same hymnal as if the internet hadn't been invented. Let's imagine that the journalists had the higher reputation they did after, let's say, Watergate, when they went after institutions and the powerful as opposed to protecting the powerful. Let's imagine that we were doing this in a totally different context. Everybody who's contradicting that doesn't realize that they're getting in the way of the war effort, the war on the virus. We say there's no war effort. You guys are a bunch of losers and clowns. What the fuck are you doing? I don't see a Churchill or a Patton or a MacArthur. I don't see anyone of competency. I don't see a Montgomery. So what the rest of us have pitchforks and knives and Swiss Army, you know, blades, and we're supposed to defend against an invading Panzer division? War and pandemic are two places where everything changes. I believe that there is a lot of residual wisdom in a corrupt system.
Now, the war and pandemic, and like, you know, when I talk to guys like Dip who are anarchists, right? And, you know what I'm saying? I got love for the dude, you know, get nothing misunderstood. This isn't me shitting on him or anything of this nature, right? But when I talk to individuals who are completely like, oh, we don't want a government, I'm like, all right, look, the government has some very basic purposes that are absolutely necessary. You have to have some type of state that, I mean, is able to conduct war, set a market, you know what I mean, and, you know, do policing, right? That's what your government is there for. Like, legit, that's all it's really there for. And pandemics and wars fall in these type of categories because it's things that you can't do as a rugged individual. You cannot conduct war as an individual unless, like, you're a billionaire and you got lots of troops. Now, granted, as a community, you can band together and defend your community, but, you know, over an overwhelming force, you know what I'm saying, you're kind of fucked, right? It's the same way with a state. Like, if a state's too small and it has, you know what I'm saying, when an overwhelming force comes in and blows you to pieces, like, it is what it is, right? But ultimately, you know, the purpose of a state, of a government, is to conduct war, you know what I mean? And that's the very beginnings of a state, you know what I mean? You know, and then, like, you know, get policing and setting a market. It's a very, very simple thing. You know, when I say setting a market, it's basically like, what are you allowed to do to make money, and being able to arbitrate, you know what I'm saying, between individuals when they have problems, you know what I'm saying, inside a business, you know, like judges, courts, things of this nature, right? Basic type of things, right? You know, like, oh, you know, how big's a yard? How much is a pound? You know, are you honoring your agreement? You know, I mean, you have to have these type of things inside of a state. Right. And that has always been a thing ever since the very beginnings of states.
I believe that our institutions are degrading. They are greatly degraded. I cannot stand the leadership class. Why are we not talking about the long-term safety of the vaccines as opposed to the short term, only the short term? You can ask us when this is going to be over. The short answer is we don't know. We speak like people with cognitive defects. We talk in such simplistic terms that can't possibly support the weight of the conversation. The key point is we expect you to get vaccinated. We expect you to get vaccinated at risk to yourself and your family. We expect you to take something that we cooked up and break your skin's barrier and have it course through your body even though you can't understand how it works. That is a profound ask. It is similar to saying we expect your sons to go to war when we say it's time to go to war.
That's not wrong. And I think that's the best way I've heard this be put. as a whole, right? I think this is the best way I've ever heard this be put. And the problem is that when you put it this way to a government official, the government official has to go like, yes, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, da 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 da. And you have to look at that government official and go, you know, you don't garner that type of respect. You don't garner that type of authority. Like, we don't trust you that much because you haven't earned it. It's a basic thing. You know what I mean? It really is. Like, you know, if you, just like the media, like, we don't trust you that much. You're not worthy of that trust. You haven't earned that. And that's an important understanding. And that's why, like, I've spoken about this when I said, like, the individuals who are not getting vaccinated on my last video. And I mean, the three type of people who are not getting vaccinated are, you know, I mean, blacks, poor whites, and Latinos. What do they have in common? These are individuals who the state, you know what I'm saying, has fucked over constantly forever. If you don't garner that type of trust, if you're not showing that you're out here for them, why would they fucking do what you told them to do? That is, like, deeply, deeply fucking important to understand.
That does not ring in modern ears. We don't understand wait, why do you get my son? It's my son. You're some sort of distant thing. This is why government is a profound responsibility.
And I mean, like, yo, sending your son to war, again, like, for a defensive war, for sure. Yeah. You know, I mean, I have absolutely no problem sending my son to die for my land. Right? I have absolutely no issue with sending my son to die for his family. No issue at all. That's a basic thing. That's something that, you know, like, my parents never had a problem asking me to do. You know, I mean, when there was a problem that needed to be solved, you know what I mean, inside of, like, the family or inside of, like, a family friend, it was, Tommy, we need your help. You know what I'm saying? This person's misbehaving, whatever. We need you to go take care of this. And I went and took care of it. That's a basic thing, right? That's something that, you know, you can ask your, you know what I mean, your family to do when it's defensive, right? When it's something that needs to be done. You know, it's like, you know, when, you know, like when, I don't know, your sister calls you and her husband's beating on her or something like that, right? You know, you want to go take care of that because there's somebody harming somebody you care about. Problem is that they've been abusing this. They're asking our sons who sign up for the military to go and fight in wars that have nothing to do with us, that are for the profits of large corporations who donate to their campaigns. Look at Ukraine, for instance. That has absolutely nothing to do with us. There's literally nothing. Russia and Germany are having a problem, right, about who has to pay and who gets the tax money of, you know what I'm saying, the natural gas and oil that flows through those pipelines and pumping stations. What does that have to do with America? Does not affect us in any way, shape, or form. Legitimately. But they expect us to send our sons to go die for them. Same with Iraq, Afghanistan, all this. Like, nothing to do with us. Sure, we wanted to go blow something up after somebody knocked down those towers. I signed up for the military at that point. Legit, I went to the recruiting office that week after 9/11 happened. I was like, yeah, with it, right? Because, you know, I was, what, 18, 19 years old? You know, but, like, again, they abused that privilege. So therefore, I mean, I didn't understand. I'm not a veteran or anything like that. I didn't make it in, right? Physical defects from football injuries, things of this nature, right? But I didn't make it in. But on the same point, you know, all my buddies who did go, you know what I'm saying, and came back, no one had anything positive to say or have any pride about the fact that, like, they defended our country, because they did not. They defended oil company standings and the world order that literally fucked over Americans. Important. It's important to understand. They abused their power. Our government has abused its power with no recourse from us. That's a very important thing to understand.
And I think that people think it's a profit opportunity, that, you know, you do it for a few years and then you get the sweet consulting gigs and the speaking arrangements afterwards. You're running the opportunity cost of being exposed to increased damage from COVID, should you get it while you were waiting for something else to occur. The morbidity associated, if you happen to be in the population of people who get long COVID with all of these bad symptoms, and, you know, I'm worried about long-term cognitive impairment, long-term respiratory impairment with significant histological damage to your lung tissue. It's not wrong to be concerned about vaccines. I want to reach the people who are aware that public health is not getting it done. You're not crazy for fear that vaccines aren't as safe as claimed. You're not crazy for thinking that the public health people are lying to you and have lied to you. You are obligated to think about whether or not this is so bad that you want to forego the vaccines in order to do something where there isn't a tremendous amount of data or a tremendous amount of understanding, where the experts or alternative experts may have things that they are choosing to do which show that they may be noble, they may be courageous, but they may also be self-interested. You have to take on the full responsibility of what you're doing. I still took the vaccine. I don't think it's completely safe. It is not illogical to try to find a new Schelling point. Am I correct? I don't know.
Fucking brilliant. Be honest with you. Fucking brilliant. Legit. And I'll be honest with you, that's all anybody really needs to hear. Right? I mean, I had this conversation with Sunrise like 2 or 3 years ago. I said, look, my problem with science and scientists as a whole is that I never hear the words, I don't know, come out of their mouths. That's what we need to hear. Humble. Very simple. Like, look, we don't understand a lot of what they're saying, right? And they don't understand a lot of what they're saying. They don't know. That's what we want to hear. It's like, yo, look, we're not sure. Be honest with you. This is the best guess we have. Great. You're being upfront. You're being honest. Because that's fucking important. Right? And if people go, well, if you don't know, you know what I'm saying, I'm not going to trust you. You know what I'm saying? And you need to go, I understand. It's a basic premise. You know what I mean? And once you get to that point, then we're having respect for each other. It's a really simple thing. And that's how you garner trust. And then, you know what I'm saying, more fuckers go, well, you know, like they came out, they were upfront, they were cool about it. Like, this is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, yo, these are what the symptoms are. If you want to risk this, you can risk this. You know what I mean? And then beyond that, we have a conversation about work and transmissibility and things of this nature. And we decide and go, hey, look, we were right, we were wrong. Basic premise. But like, what you don't do is you don't allow more and more and more and more and more and more and more people into the fucking country while you're doing this. You lock everything the fuck down and we figure it out from there. Because the more people you let into the country, the more versions of this fucking virus you're going to have in the country. And we have to keep going through this over and over and over again. It's really simple. It's a really basic thing. It's on Peace with Pnoid News. I'm going to holla at y'all. Peace.